Welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is Dalsimer, author of It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day. I love this title. Can't wait to dig into this one. Allie, welcome. And I want to start out by just having you tell me about this book and why you wrote it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kelly. I'm super excited to be here. So the book was a bit of a journey. I'm kind of an accidental author, you could say, because I've been going through, like so many people who end up writing self-help style books, although this isn't a traditional self-help book, but I went through some personal traumas and difficulties and found myself in a low place. And so I ended up pulling out some notes that I had originally started as life advice for my kids. And I started writing. And in the writing process, of course, it was a very self-healing process, and ended up completing it. It became a little bit larger than I anticipated, sent it to my kids and said, "Hey, I wrote you life advice. You don't have to make my mistakes. You can just make your own mistakes. You don't have to make mine." Um, and they encouraged me to publish it. They shared it with some friends. I ended up sharing it with some folks in my book club, and I was like, okay, I'll publish it and see how it goes. And the feedback I got was really, really positive. I did end up revising the book because I just sort of put it out there as it was. And then I took a hard look at it and I added some introductory materials to kind of place it because it really, I needed to frame it because it's not a traditional self-help book. It's not, you read it and it's great. It's set up in little bite-sized chapters. So I have a quote, everything from Yoda to Led Zeppelin to Lao Tzu. And then I have 2 or 3 pages where I share a life story or some lessons or advice. And the goal is to say, this was my experience, and this is how it might relate to you. And I put it back out, and it's been very well received. It's done great, and I've had some wonderful feedback from it. So I've decided to embrace the author journey, and also it's led to a burgeoning speaking career, because I've been speaking to a couple small groups, and I'm being encouraged to expand on that. So I am, door opening, might as well walk through. And yeah, so now I am a full-time author and motivational speaker. So go figure.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Twists and
Well,
turns of life.
yeah. So what a great story that you weren't even intending to write this as a book. It's what came out of just kind of, not playing around, but just kind of reflecting and writing and thinking and, spending time, but not with that intention of getting that book out there. So I love that. I have had a guest on recently who talked, she actually teaches how to do reflection writing. And it sounds like that was kind of what you were doing is kind of reflecting on things and writing your story. So yeah, so I love that. And I want to dig into the speaking journey as well, because that's actually what I do in my business, help people get speaking events. So I want to
Oh,
hear from you kind of how that came about. But yeah, so uh, let's back up to the book for a second and tell me about, so you were writing these, is it mostly like stories from your life? You talked about, so I got this like image in my mind of the book because you said, I told my kids that they didn't have to go through the same mistakes I made. Right. So your book itself is kind of telling the stories of your own experiences and kind of how people can apply that to their own journeys.
a little bit. It's the arc of the book, the goal of it. So the subtitle is a journey to self-discovery. And the goal of the book is to provide stepping stones to help people along the path so that they can, what I call, embrace their inner fabulosity, that which makes us truly unique, our perfect imperfections, and and really lean into those and pursue those so that we can maximize our personal potentials. And so the goal is to take the reader, originally my kids,
Mm-hmm.
A place of sadness and loss and despair because they lost their husband. I mean, they lost their I lost my husband. They lost their father a few years back,
Yeah.
and then my mother died. And then they were, they were going through some things. I was as well, but to take them from that place to a place where they can really learn to like themselves, like their lives, identify those things that really brought joy to them and at a meaningful level, and move on to actually really loving who they are and embracing what they want to do, and then setting them on that stage so that they can then go pursue whatever their dreams are, whatever their goals are. So the book does that for anybody, and you can pick it up and put it down, and you can flip to a section that speaks to whatever you might be going through at a particular time. It's definitely not a one and done. It's more of a use it when you need it, and just try to stay motivated and true to yourself. Don't listen to the people who bring you down. Try to minimize or remove yourself from I call them the naysayers,
Mm-hmm.
that constant drip, drip, drip of negativity that wears a hole in the stone from the constant battering over time. And as well as our own negative self-talk. So it really is more just trying to offer life advice so that they can understand that who they are is who they're meant to be, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says,
Mm-hmm.
and and then enables them to move on. And I think the way I did it was in part by sharing some personal stories or anecdotes. They're not always my stories. There's one story I tell about my husband's aunt, who she and her husband had this dream of going to New Orleans. That was their thing, 'cause they were big foodies and whatever. And Ralph ended up dying in his 50s unexpectedly, and they never went. And I remember talked with Mama Jean. She got, in her 80s, and I talked with her, and she said that was one of her biggest life's regrets. And it's not like they couldn't do it, it wasn't I say in the book, it wasn't like they were trying to do something big. It's just taking a weekend or getting a drive or whatever. And they did a lot of stuff. They traveled a lot, they went a lot of places. They never went to New Orleans, right? That's a story that I think everyone can relate to. How many of us are like, oh, I really want to do XYZ. Oh, one day I'm going to do XYZ. And you just never get around to it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and so, it's those kinds of stories where hopefully people can see themselves and their own life choices in what I've written and apply it to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's sad that that part of that story was sad that, she never went there and regretted that. Um, but yeah, it's so true. You have to like start making those, you just have to start being intentional about those things that you want to do. Otherwise, someday never comes. You say, "Well, someday I'm going to do
That's
that.
right.
Someday, right?" And then,
Mhm. And
yeah,
then
you
it's
don't want
shoulda,
to,
coulda, woulda.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, so this book, you kind of wrote it, gave it to your kids, and then it turned into this book. I think that story is just so interesting that that was how you brought it to life. For you, was the writing process kind of a like a therapeutic kind of process for you?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And it wasn't just the writing of this book, which going through that, and I'm living my own, you know, journey to self-discovery. I really am, which is empowering. It's just so empowering, to really embrace my inner fabulosity, which I've really only started doing in the last, I don't know, year or so. And but I love I love the writing process. I really enjoy, just doing it, just creating and writing, and so I'm continuing to do that. My goal is to write a book in as many different genres as I can do, however that many that turns out to be, 2 or 20, who knows. But that's what I want to do now. So
Yeah, yeah. So how did you turn this from the book into kind of the speaking platform that also just kind of opened. I feel like you've manifested these things in your life that it's like
Yeah.
you started I don't even know that you intended for that to be what happened, but you kind of opened yourself up, like you said, like the door opened and you said, I might as well go through it, right? So,
Yeah.
how did you start that kind of speaking journey, and how did you take the mess? I don't know if it's so. Tell me a little bit about also what you speak on, and is it something from the book, or like how did you, if it is something from the book, how did you turn that into the message that you speak on?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was
Yeah.
like a lot of questions in one there, Allie.
I will do my best, and if I miss anything, just ask again. Um, so yeah, it's basically based on the types of messaging that's in the book. It's not a straight one for one. Um, and I'm still very much at the beginning stages. I'm at the frontier of this career. It's really been in the last 2 to 3 months, and it came about because I'd been asked to come and speak to a couple groups. I spoke at a couple little uh, bookshops and a couple little women's groups, and um, spoke with a group of college girls and a couple other little things, and kept asking, well, where do you have a podcast? What's your podcast? I have a podcast. Well, can you speak on this? So it just kind of evolved, and I decided, you know what, maybe I need to take this message to a broader scale. It's incredibly encouraging that people want to hear it. It's that the universe is knocking, you should answer kind of thing. So I looked into the whole podcast thing, and I actually recorded a sample podcast. And I was like, I mean, like, bless your heart, Kelly, because like I'm not doing it. I was like, I'm not there. That's just not, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I thought, that I've done a lot of public speaking in my previous career. I spent 30 years as an environmental professional. I ran for public office. I've done a lot of things where I've done a lot of public speaking. Um, and I thought I like public speaking. I'm comfortable in front of an audience. And I really love when it's informal and you can just have a back and forth and talk. And so I started looking into it, and there's a lot. There's a huge learning curve with becoming a speaker. But I've took a lot of courses, Zoom classes, and read. And I actually have a book that I still haven't read, but it's how to be a public speaker. Basically, I think it's
Hmm.
Public Speaking 101 or something like that. And I definitely will look into it. And I've had a couple little things. I did an Amazon Live recently about uh, cherishing the mother-daughter bond, where I
Hmm.
told some very personal stories, which actually they were stories I hadn't ever shared publicly or even with my children. And it ended up being a little bit emotional for me, but the goal was to try and demonstrate that you really can break those bonds of generational trauma. You really can.
Hmm.
And um, and that seemed to go well. And then I've got another engagement in June, and my core of my message is really about embracing your inner fabulosity so that you can maximize your personal potential, and talk about how everybody's journey is unique, because it's your journey. There's no right or wrong way, right? It's your journey. And I think a lot of us get sucked into this. We should do this, we must do this. There's these peer pressure, cultural pressures, family pressures, societal pressures for us to do XYZ in our lives. And
Hmm.
to really say, you know what, no, let's look inside. What brings me joy at a deep and meaningful level, and lean into that, and provide some tools and strategies to help people do that. And so that's where my speaking is going now.
Nice.
But like I said, I'm
Nice.
still very much at the beginning. I'm at the beginning of the journey, so I'm excited
Yeah.
for what I have to learn.
Well, it's interesting that you've been asked to come speak. I think a lot of people would be jealous to hear that because
Yeah.
it's not always that easy. So that's great that that's the experience you've had. Where do you see yourself going with the book? You mentioned writing other books, and kind of this speaking platform is kind of, it seems like that's kind of new. So what's kind of the next step for you?
Well, in terms of speaking, I need to continue to learn about it, and I need to reach out. Like you said, I'm very lucky that I've been approached to speak a couple times, but that's not, you can't sit around and be like, here I am, please come ask me to speak. You
Right?
do have to you have to look into it and find groups that are interested in your message. And so that's where I'm at now. I'm trying to research those groups and figure out where does my message fit in? Who wants to hear what I have to say? And
Hmm.
so I'm very much looking into that. So I was cued right in when you were like, you helped set that up. I was like, talking to you about that later. Um,
I actually never talk about that on my podcast. But when you said it, I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to find out more about that. Because my podcast, I have all women on who are have nonfiction books that they want to share with the world. But the business that I started is thought leadership marketing. So I actually help people get on stages, get podcast interviews, and things like that. So yeah, so that's why I also tuned in, when you said that, that's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
of
Well,
interest to me. But
we'll have to chat.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I love kind of just how your journey has unfolded, and these things have just kind of come into or seem to just kind of fall into place. I'm sure there was some intentionality in that, but you're right. Getting speaking events. I mean, some people might get asked. They might be fortunate enough to be asked to come and speak at an event, but a lot of times it does take intentionality and researching the events that you want to speak at, making sure that you're getting in front of your target audience, putting in applications for them. Sometimes speaking events are 9 months away. You might be applying this month and that event is 9 months from now. So it does take some time to kind of start building that up if you really want to get out there. Anyways, but yeah, that's definitely my world there. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, so going back to your book, you mentioned kind of like your process in writing it, and you had given it to your kids. The This podcast, Beyond the Bestseller, I forget to remind my audience of this sometimes, so this is a good time to do that. That the title of my podcast really came from me, thinking about authors and the books that they write, and the messages they want to share with the world. That it isn't always about being a bestseller or be. I worked in publishing for many years, and what I often saw, so I was in the self-publishing world, and what I often saw was people would write a book and they would think, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to, I'm going to, right? I'm going to
Right.
sell 1 million copies and this is going to be my retirement. Like that's what people would think. They would write this book and that was, um, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you can really build a business platform around your book, but realistically, you shouldn't be writing a book for that reason. It should be for that deeper message, right? So for me, it's that beyond the bestseller is like, what was beyond the bestseller to you? Not just wanting to be on the bestseller list, but what was the real message you wanted to get out? You've
Yeah.
covered it a little bit, but I want to ask you that just directly. Like you didn't write this to be a bestseller. You didn't write it to even publish necessarily, but
Right.
what was the like real core of like what was drawing you to get these words out?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I just as an aside, I read recently that you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning than you do of getting on the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh, well, that's a good quote to know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I think the message I really want to convey and what I do try to convey when I speak with people is that every person has value. You are a worthy person and your dreams are worthwhile because too often we are minimized or belittled and our dreams are demeaned in some way. And that certainly was the case for me personally growing up. And I really, really want people, if even one person, when I'm speaking to a group, if even one person walks away thinking, you know what? I am a worthwhile, valuable person, and I want to do XYZ with my life, and I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take that step and the next and the one after that. Then I feel like I have succeeded. That's really what drives me. Right before the podcast, we spoke very briefly, and I mentioned that a woman who had read my book had been very touched by it, and she'd reached out to me. And the message that she sent me, Kelly, it was it was just I won't share the details of it, but she really was going through a hard time, and my message
Mm,
spoke to her. It spoke to her in a very deep and meaningful way, and she benefited from that and felt like she had started her healing process. And to get a message like that is just, I mean, you can't pay for that kind of warm and fuzzy, you know? And
Yeah.
just being able to do that is just, it makes everything worthwhile. It really does.
Yeah. Well, and that's, yeah, that's so much of the the purpose of this podcast is that these books are written to help people in some way. And yeah, so that's why I want to help elevate women to be able to share their messages and to reach a wider audience. So um I love kind of how all that came together. I don't think you told the other part of that story with the message you got about
Oh,
the book. We should cover that as well.
okay. The wait, the messaging of the book
So you have your book behind you. You have two copies on the shelf right at your shoulder, and you have
Yep.
one up above
In Spanish.
in Spanish. So yeah, tell that
Yes.
story.
Okay. Yeah. So this woman who reached out to me and read the book, she's a native Spanish. Well, she's fluent and she's multilingual actually. But the way I found out was she had gotten my book, read it, and then she emailed me and to tell me about how much the book had meant, and she shared the stories that I referenced. But the unexpected part was that she really felt other people should read the message. And so she took it upon herself to translate the book into Spanish and sent it to me. Just with her thanks. And it was just really lovely. And, I was right in this space of updating the book at that point, adding the additional materials. I didn't really change the core of the book. The central passage of the book is the same, but I added bonus materials at the end, whatever. And we worked together and she ended up translating the rest of that. And yeah, it's just, and so, we're in touch and we're friends now. And I feel very blessed to have her in my life. And yeah, she did that all on her own. So
Love that.
very,
Yeah.
very cool.
That's such a great story. And yeah, to have that book translated and being able to reach people in other languages, that's beautiful. I don't know if I've had anyone on who's had their book translated to Spanish, so
Huh.
that's pretty special.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And so now I think I didn't answer the second part of your question about writing. So yeah, so my goal now also, in addition to pursuing the public speaking and really continuing to share this message that I really am hoping people will take to heart, is continuing to write in other genres. So I'm working on two other manuscripts, which is kind of fun. A middle grade book that's about a mouse who befriends a cat who he thinks is a duck. Um, and that deals with themes of, bravery and prejudice and those kinds of things. And then a new adult novel, which is a slightly spicy romance thriller. And when those are done, I'm thinking either I will do a biography of my congressional run or I will do a murder mystery. So it's so
Mm.
fun. I'm learning so much.
That's so interesting. I have tried writing fiction. I've done I don't know if you've heard of NaNoWriMo, but it's National Novel Writing Month in November. And I did that one month. I was like, I'm gonna do this. It's 30 days and you write 50,000 words in the month and try to write your book. But it's fiction. I did the next year, I think I did NaNoWriMo. I was a nano rebel is what they call it. So I was writing
Okay.
nonfiction during the month.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Counterculture stuff.
yes. Um, yeah, but my fiction, like when I think that I'm writing a good story and then like I look back and I'm like, wow, that is really terrible. So yeah, I am not a fiction writer. I like to read fiction, but I cannot
Yeah.
write fiction. So
Yeah,
good luck with that.
well, it's a very different thing. And I think that's when honestly, this is what I think I love about it, because I will tell you right now, writing for a middle grade audience is completely different than writing
Sure. Yeah.
something spicy thriller for a new adult office, which is
Yeah.
uh, audience, which, is completely different from writing for people interested in political biographies. So it's a different style of writing, it's a different way of communicating. And you know what I think I'm addicted to? Just realized it this very second. I'm simply addicted to learning. I
Yeah.
love exploring and learning and trying new things.
Yeah.
And I think that's been part of my my journey recently.
Yeah.
I'm just like a sponge. I want to soak everything up and I want to try new things. And I wrote a nonfiction book and it was great. And I've been asked, when's the next one coming out? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that you want
Yeah.
another one, but you know,
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm that way too, where like that's why I tried that fiction challenge. I was like, I'm gonna do
mhm.
this, and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I learned through that. I'm not good at it, but that's okay.
Nothing
It's
ventured,
fun to
nothing
try new
gained.
things.
You
Yeah,
have no regrets, right? We never regret the things we try. It's when we don't try things, when we don't put ourselves out there and we don't
yeah,
do them. And then it's like, what if only? So, good for you.
yeah,
You
yeah,
did the right thing.
yeah. I tried it. I learned. Maybe I try it again, but no, don't expect any fiction out of me. It's probably not gonna happen.
There's always historical fiction. That's primarily based in fact.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just stick to nonfiction.
Okay. That's your swim
That's
lane.
okay.
Stick with
That's
it.
okay. I have some women in my I have a author power circle for women who
Mhm.
are writing not for they're writing nonfiction. But it's funny to learn like some people are just really, really good at like that poetic type writing, even though it's nonfiction, it's like these beautiful things that are coming out of them. And I'm like, I am very just like cut and dry in my writing. Like it's like this is what happened. This is how it
Right.
was.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a skill that you have to learn too. So maybe I can do some reflection writing and practice that a little bit. But
Maybe or
anyway,
maybe not. I mean, if you found what you're good at and you enjoy, stick with
yeah,
it
just
and
yeah,
embrace
lean
it.
into that.
Lean into what you enjoy,
Yeah.
right? Be you. Don't let your power circle influence you. You do what you do.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Allie, I will link to your book. So again, it's okay not to be fabulous every day. I will link to that in the show notes. How else can people find out more about you online? Maybe even connect with you for a potential speaking event or whatever comes your way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Well, the easiest way to keep up with me is probably to sign up for my newsletter at allydalsimer.com/newsletter. And also on the website, allydalsimer.com, you can book me for speaking engagements or whatever. Find out about me. I've got a little background information. I've got information about my books, and I'm on socials, primarily on Instagram at Allie Dalsimer. And yeah, I'd love to connect with people. It's the cream of the milk, right? To be able to interact with folks. So
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Allie. I will definitely connect with you. And yeah, we will include all those links in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here and had a great time chatting.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyschuknecht.com.